Everybody's a little nervous when they first come on to the podcast, so I gotta check on my guests.
Man.
You know, I gotta
I'm
throw
good,
I gotta
man.
throw them. All right, you sure? Okay, let's find out. First question. You ready?
All right.
What's the name of the podcast?
What else do I gotta tell you?
Yeah. And I just looked at it too. The you got me real good.
It's the identity booth. All right, go ahead, put on it. Go ahead, put on your best smile, because right now there's a picture of everyone else who got the answer wrong, and you're now part of the club. Congratulations, Coach.
I appreciate it.
Welcome to the identity booth, you guys. We are back, and as promised, we're still out here trying to identify with people as they identify with us, and more importantly, we're trying to better our understanding of situations that aren't inherently apparent to us. And for those reasons and for that purpose, we have another celebrity in the house. This Zoom thing is the best thing that's ever happened to me, because now I get to interview people. I don't have to go find these people. They literally on the internet. I force them to sit down in front of me and talk to me. I am forcing people to become my friends. But I have a special guest in the house. We have Coach Cox in the building, and he is one of the best people to talk about when it comes down to sports and b-ball. I mean, he can shoot better than me. I know that much. I was a football guy. Coach knows this. So I don't have a left. But, you know, if you got a left and you got a little crossover, I'm going to put you in contact with him. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special celebrity in the house. We have Coach Cox in the building, and he's going to be talking to us today about what he does, and more importantly, the impact of the pandemic and how it's going to be affecting him and how he got to this position. So let's just go ahead and give it up for the coach. Thanks for having you. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate it, Coach. You know, it's a pleasure to have you in the booth. How you doing? Is everything all right?
Everything's going good, as good as it can go for, you know, circumstances that are going on right now.
Yeah, you know, it's a caveat. Is you have to lie to talk about how you're doing these days. You're gonna you're gonna have to tell a lie. So I appreciate you not holding out on me and, you know, taking time out of your busy schedule. I'm not gonna dabble in it too much, but just real quick, you are the head coach of the women's basketball team at Arkansas Monticello.
Yes, UAM, University of Arkansas Monticello.
Perfect. And how long have you been doing this job?
Well, I just got to Arkansas Monticello in May, but I'm headed into my ninth season now. So,
congratulations. And
thank you.
You know, major accomplishment for you. We're both some people who came from the yard. We graduated in the same year, and like I've been trying to tell people for long, it's not like me and you have sat down and had conversations for hours on theology and theoretical physics. That's not something we've done. But you're a family when you come from the yard. That's something I want to stress. All these kids trying to figure out what they're going to do, going to these PWIs, going to these schools. You know, HBCUs, you make everlasting connections. I didn't have to scan my LinkedIn file. I literally put a text message out, and somebody set this up for us. And, you know, shout out to Bug. She didn't want to be on camera, but, you know, we're gonna put a picture up there. Thanks for putting us in contact with each other. But I appreciate you, you know, letting those family ties be real. Like I said, there's anything you look for can be found in Pine Bluff. I don't care what anybody says. Gucci, Louis Vuitton, scientists, lawyers, doctors, we're all there. Right. So I appreciate you being here and talking to me. But we're gonna dive into it, because I know you got practice or something going on. I know there's some whistle you need to be blowing in the next few hours, and I know y'all get a little nervous when y'all can't blow your whistle, so I'm not gonna waste your time. All right, so first and foremost, you know, you're a coach, and we're talking about your your development and your skill set and what you're doing. And if for some strange reason, there's a lot of people trying to give you advice on how to deal with your situation right now who
Right.
don't have the expertise. So I want to know, what made you want to be a coach in the first place? Because like, when I think of my coaches, these are some very impactful people to me. These are some very inspirational people to me. I come from a sports background. So tell me, Coach, like, what was it about coaching that drew you?
Well, for me, it's kind of a little more of a different situation. I come from a family of coaches and teachers. My aunts were all, well, for the majority, they were teachers in the high school ranks. My aunt was a high school girls basketball coach for over 30 years. My uncle, as well, was a high school basketball coach at the same exact high school. So I literally grew up in a gym. And I tell people all the time, people grew up wanting to be doctors and lawyers. I wanted to be a coach because, that's something that I found, a passion in, and I could see it kind of come full circle for me right in my immediate family, looking to my aunt and my uncle, and then the teaching aspect comes in play, when I look at my grandmother or my other aunts that taught. So for me, that kind of got my start. I tell people I was probably in the gym as early as 3 years old, just during summers and being babysat by my aunts or my uncle and just kind of hanging around basketball. And that's kind of what, jump started it for me. So, throughout my entire career, everything that I did was to position myself to be, a collegiate basketball coach.
No, absolutely. And have you always just been focused on coaching? Have you ever taught any like subjects like math or science or anything like that?
No, I have not. I currently teach a basketball class at the university. Outside of that, I jumped out of college and started my first year as a volunteer assistant. And, I did the volunteer thing for a year, moved on to the junior college ranks, took my first head coaching job at about 25. And then just, it kind of took me from there, and I'm finally glad to have a job back down south. So this is my first time being relatively closer to home in probably the last 7 years.
No, and to be doing anything for 7 years.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm trying to sit here and think of something I've done for 7 years. I don't think I've managed to maintain a workout regimen for 7 years.
Yeah.
So just being able to accomplish this, I'm going to be the first person to say, if you haven't heard it today, I'm proud of you.
Thanks.
Coming from the crib, coming from a place of brotherhood, like we need more people. Like I struggle to find black male leadership to have this conversation with. So seeing you here, having you here, warms my heart, keeps people like me and you. It takes people like me and you to make sure that this conversation is happening. Without us, this conversation doesn't happen. So I'm happy to have you here, and continue to strive and persevere. Don't let up. Don't let up.
Thank you. Well, I tell people all the time, to be able to be in a position where essentially I get paid to dribble a basketball in practice and to coach up, young adults and help them outside of life. Man, I couldn't ask for a better profession, and to be able to do it for 9 years, going into the 9th year, I mean, it's just been an extreme blessing on my life, and I'm just happy.
All right, and speaking of the players, let's speak about this lovable, athletic, highly talented cast of women you have in your ranks right now. You are training a team to get ready for a year that hopefully we can have. But are there any standouts that you have on the team right now? Somebody that's the people definitely need, your opponents need to definitely be reading the scouting report about?
Well, I'll just kind of put it like this. I have 7 returners, and those 7 returners played in the championship game last year. So
Okay.
so they went to the conference championship. Unfortunately, they didn't come out victorious on that side. But to bring experience with 5 seniors, as well as a host of freshmen and transfers coming in with us, so to have that balance of 7 experienced young ladies, but to also pair that with 9 newcomers to UAM, I think we have an opportunity to do something special right away. We kind of hit the sweet spot where experience actually meets talent as well. And hopefully, on paper we look really good. So hopefully, we can carry that over into the season whenever that happens.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And as the new coach there, it's all, I feel messaging is super important. The way it's presented, the way it's back. What is the message of this year? If you had an overarching message to your players, what should it be?
So my theme for the year is bloom where you are planted. That's my theme for the year, bloom where you're planted. Everyone has more something than we have. Everyone has something better, something different. But what can you do with what you have? Okay. And I stress that to my players because I tell them all the time, some girl somewhere would give almost anything just to be in the position that you're in. So, we look at other places where people have better all around. When it all falls down, it's all about relationships and the people that kind of help you through it. But on top of that, when you're at a university like this, and especially in a time like this, you have the opportunity and the privilege to be a collegiate basketball player. That's not a rite of passage. The game doesn't owe you anything. The ball will dribble for whoever, has the ball in its hand. So, you got to bloom where you're planted, man. And one day the ball will stop bouncing for them. And for me right now, the biggest thing in this year that they're going to be able to learn is, we got to make progress with what we have. Regardless of if that's, scholarships, regardless if that's facilities, regardless of whatever this new normal is going to be when they return to campus. We literally have to bloom where we're planted. And I think we have the necessary tools here at the university to do so.
And I'm just because we're both athletes from a standpoint, and I'm gonna egg this on. I'm like, Coach, who's on the schedule is a guaranteed W?
I'm
not gonna put you like that. I'm not gonna do that to you.
I'll put it like this: everybody's going to be tough when this team here last year won 20 games and finished 5th place in conference. So it's going to be a dogfight every single night. With the NCAA new legislation on the season, we're going to only participate in 22 games. So we'll get 22 games, and if we are able to squeeze in exhibition games and scrimmages, we'll do those. But for us in the GAC, 22 games is our entire conference. So from day one, we're we're hitting the ground running with a conference game. So it's really going to be tough. So I can't promise who's going to be a cupcake game or who's going to be an easy one yet because I'm getting my feet wet here. But at the same time, I'll tell you this, we're going to do our best to be prepared, and we're going to come out swinging.
Hey, you know what? I'm just going to say, first team, watch your back, fam. Just watch your back. But no, let's get into the crux of the pie right now. So I want to draw your memory back to pre-COVID, early March. You started hearing stories about COVID. Nothing has officially come down the pipeline. If you were in the medical field, red flags were starting to go off for us. But for someone who's a coach, I don't expect you to understand the integral factors of virology or mRNA. That's not what you're here for. That's not what you signed up for. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned were you in March about the threat of COVID?
In March, it was probably a 10 because my university closed down in December. So for me, my season was cut right away in December. There was no more basketball for me. And if anybody knows anything about the coaching carousel, seasons usually wrap up late February, early March. Jobs start to kind of come open in mid-March to April. So for me, this COVID thing hits, everything shuts down. I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? Now that I'm looking for another opportunity and looking for another place of employment, to continue this journey. So for me, it was a 10 back in March when it kind of first hit and everything kind of started to shut down. So I have a little bit of a different perspective on that than, what it actually is for me now.
Okay, okay. And that's pretty significant because I believe a vast majority of the people I've talked to in this interview series have given it about a 3 because they were in spring break at the time. So
Hmm.
they were told, okay, you're going home and you're not coming back. So I think that's super interesting to find, and just how they're doing. So now let's fast forward to
Hmm.
3 months into this quarantine. You're starting to see plans develop on campus. Let's talk about the campus response and how you feel the campus drawn. Did you think it was adequate? And is there some semblance of a plan being made to bring us basketball?
Well, I actually was thoroughly impressed with our administration and the plan that they placed together. We placed a premium on safety, number one, but on top of that, our administration did a very fine job of doing what I like to call a return to play type of situation for them to be able to be on campus, regardless of if the sports are going to go on in the fall or get pushed to the spring, regardless of what's going to happen. We literally came up with a plan. So me coming in May with fresh eyes and being able to have a plan here and say, okay, here's what we're going to do, X, Y, and Z. We're going to set up this space if we need to do this. We're going to adjust the semester in this way and this way. So for them to have a plan already in place, it lets me know that I'm at the right place where forward thinking is actually going on. So, regardless of if the season is going to kick off or anything athletically wise, I think that, we've done our best to today on being able to bring the students back to the campus safely and hopefully having our own little bubble to where we can maybe continue to have education going on this semester.
Definitely, definitely. Are you opposed to, I know you're not in the, I know you have a classroom that requires there to be sort of some type of physical contact. Are you opposed to the schools opening up remotely first to kind of test the waters, doing a hybrid schedule? Is that something that you would be opposed to?
I know I definitely wouldn't be opposed to. I think the biggest thing right now is if we can safely do it, bring our students back to campus. Because, you and I remember being 18, 19 years old. Half the things we're going to read is going to be on social media. And I know for one at 18 or 19, I felt almost invincible. So for this thing to kind of go away, I think as a coach, I have a big voice to my players and my athletes to be able to say, hey, you need to do this so that we can play. So with them being at home and having access to be able to kind of run wild, in a sense, running all over the place, we kind of got an opportunity to kind of tame it and get them back to somewhat of a normal activity and be able to kind of structure the workouts and different things like that and say, hey, this is how we safely return to what you guys are in school to do as far as being a student and being an athlete.
Definitely, definitely. So then I'll put it out there like this. Like, and once again, I have no idea how this is going, like how this would work for you. So I have to ask, and this might be coming from a place of ignorance. There's no real way for you to remotely coach a team. Like,
Right.
that's not something that's possible. Like, if the schools don't open up, what is your commitment to your players? Like, do you have a personal strategy, or do you have a facilitated strategy with your organization? Because once again, someone needs help with their homework, I can pop up on a Zoom conference. But
Mm-hmm.
if your player needs to work on their handlings from the left and understand the schemes of a player for the next team, I don't think that's something you can do on a Zoom conversation. Am I wrong?
Right. Well, to an extent, when it comes to actually getting out there and doing game day prep, that would be a little bit hard. But this Zoom thing has really been amazing. We'd be able to get on and show film and kind of talk over scouting reports, send those virtually, and be able to share the screen with those scouting reports and kind of break down details using the software that we actually have. The only part would be is you couldn't physically step on the court and walk through the plays that the different teams would be running. So that would be the only part that would be a little more difficult when it came to trying to do some sort of virtual teaching. My hope and prayer is that we can actually figure out a way to get them on the court safely and hopefully carry out what's left of the season for them.
No, definitely. And that begs the question because regardless of what you do, uh, we live in a society and we need everyone to be on the same page, person to person. You know, be kind to your neighbor type situation. You know, as simple as a simple request such as wearing a mask. Do you think that's too big of a request to make of the American people so we could be back to normal by now?
I don't think that it's too big of a request. If you would see my drawer, I have a drawer full of masks. State of Arkansas, we've mandated that you wear a mask at all times outside of where you can social distance. So I think if essentially if everyone could comply to just simply something as simple as wearing a mask, if that's what's going to help us get to whatever the next step may be, then I'm all for it. I'm a team player in that regard, and anybody that's been on a team can tell you that it takes more than one person to achieve a goal. So if we all kind of join on a
hold
team,
on, Coach. Coach, I need you to say that again, please. you can't drop a gem like that and walk away. No, this ain't no rap battle. Say that one more time.
It takes more than one person on a team to achieve a goal. Yeah.
All right, come on.
So yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would say just in that regard, if that helps, the kids get the opportunity to play, to do the small things like high schoolers are able to go to prom and graduation and the simple things that we may have taken for granted. If it only requires us to wear a mask for them for the future, I'm all for it.
All right, excellent. And let's now push to the part that no one ever talks about, the 12-hour drives to these houses to meet these players, these 14-hour long drives to go watch a player play 15 minutes and be like, oh, what the heck was I thinking? Let's talk about the part of coaching that isn't on TV. You walk into I'll play a parent. I'm the parent here. I have a 5-star athlete who lives in Chicago, and you just drove all the way up here to recruit and look at me, and you're sitting there across from me with my daughter after she just dropped 50 in a game, in a game that they won by 51 points, and it's just
right.
like, my daughter wants to go to your school, but she has these other offers. What are you telling me as a parent and my daughter as a student athlete to convince us that, not only is your program the right program, but you are going to make sure my kids are safe during this time?
Well, the first thing that's making this thing hard is those drives and those meetups we can't even do right now. So we're virtually recruiting. The same way I'm talking to you on a Zoom call is how we're having to do different things as far as being able to show campus, as far as being able to have a full conversation with parents. If we're recruiting somewhere that's outside of our region where a kid can't come to campus or different things like that, we essentially can't leave off campus and go recruiting. So this has been a different part as well. You think about July. July is a big recruiting month for college basketball with AAU and everything like that. So we're having to utilize these different tools right now, like being able to live stream and look at a computer and evaluate girls based on stats and not being able to get out there and see them already. That's different. So when we talk about safety, my job now is just to be able to say, hey, we're going to follow whatever the protocols that, the government places and whatever the NCAA wants us to do as a whole. We're going to, make sure we do our part as far as the NCAA's restrictions. And we're also going to make sure that we do our part, whatever the university, has on their restrictions. So it's so different right now. It's hard to really say to a parent, hey, your kid is going to be 100% safe from this virus thing when we really don't know. There's no protocol on how people are getting it, how people are losing it. Only thing we know right now is we can promise that, hey, your kid's going to be required to wear a mask right now. And we're going to do our best to keep it 6 feet apart if that's what it's saying that we should do. And quarantine, we're going to make sure we give the amount of days that's required. So we're going to follow the guidelines that we're given right now because we want basketball back to a normal where I could actually go maybe sit in a gym and evaluate in December or November or January. So
And
it's really a hard time.
and I'm going to give you some kudos right now, Coach, because I've had three separate interviews with three separate generations. I've had a conversation with an older generation on Zoom. That wasn't pleasant. I've had a conversation with some Zoomers. That was a little hectic. But you managed to make this seem seamless. You got everything set up, and obviously the best generation, millennials. So we know a thing or two. We got enough sense to work forward and backwards. So do you see uh, coaches who are tech savvy thriving this year?
Oh yeah, definitely. The ones who are able to adapt and adjust, it's been amazing. I've been on several Zoom calls with top people in my profession, and just the little things that they're able to do and kind of teach us on Zoom that they're doing, whether they're a step ahead or two steps ahead. It's like, oh, why didn't I never think of that? For me, I had to do interviews on Zoom, so I interviewed at several different institutions, and it had to be on Zoom because campuses were shut down. So I kind of got a jump start on it in March because I started to interview, and I was like, okay, this is how we make this not as awkward, or this is how we move forward doing this. And now that we're having Zoom conversations with our players, we know different little things to be able to put in place to make it seem as normal as possible.
So now we're at a situation where, the NCAA has a lot to do with what we're doing. You look to them for guidance. You look for them for opportunities. Is there any concern, because you're a Division II school, is there any concern that some of these bigger schools are going to silence or mute out some of the concerns coming from the smaller programs? Like, do you have a concern that the NCAA isn't going to adhere or be as available as, say, for like Arkansas Razorback?
Well, I think up to this point that they're doing a pretty good job on being able to communicate with our athletic directors and our athletic administration on how we move forward. I can tell you this, my boss and I'm sure other athletic directors are on countless Zoom calls every week to figure out what the small colleges are going to do. Now, we're not talking about the Power Fives, the 5%ers, whatever you want to call them. They're on a different scale than, us here with, 4,000 or less students. We operate in two different zones, essentially. What I can appreciate is that, the NCAA does understand that enrollment helps these smaller universities stay afloat. So, with them being able to put in place where, kids can come on campus and still have visits, but, they put parameters on things like that. I think they've done a phenomenal job of at least letting us get to that point to where, other universities, if this possibly couldn't have happened, some of those places may not exist anymore. I know several universities, because of funding and enrollment actually going down and predicted numbers for the fall because they weren't able to do anything, they've shut their doors. So I think up to this point, they're doing whatever they're supposed to do, and so far it's been okay. And I know our conference, at least, they've been working diligently in the GAC to try to help us return to play, regardless of if that's this fall or in the winter going into the spring. Whatever they're doing, they're trying to make it as safe as possible, and on top of making it as safe, they're trying to make sure that none of us, fold from this process. So, as far as what they've been doing thus far, I can't say that I have a real complaint yet.
Okay, that's great, and kudos to the NCAA for making that readily available, even for not the Power Five, because I came from UAPB, so in my mind that's a Division I school, AA. But in my mind, I'm like, nah, we're down here. We came up out the mud. We had to go get it. So
yeah,
that never fazed me. So then it now leads me to just the financial, because regardless of how you want to cut it, athletics bring in a big portion of the school's funding. It draws the crowd, it draws the boosters. If coming from the UAPB sphere, it is the thing that kind of brought about the band. So without the football, there is no band. Without band, there is no football. So like they hand in hand. God forbid a situation where we don't have sports this year. What does that mean for your campus? Are they prepared to push on or have plans to make sure that this campus doesn't shut their doors just because athletics aren't going on?
I have to give props to our administration because we've done a great job on being able to return our students to school. Now, it may be a little bit of a different story if, we don't get these kids here in the fall. I can't speak for that. But as far as we're concerned today, these, young men and young women are coming back to campus. And if sports don't happen, with them actually being on campus, I think we'll be able to, kind of prepare a different type of message to encourage them to finish the semester strong before the grades. And, if it plays into the spring, hey, we're going to need fall and spring eligibility. We need you to stay on your grades in order to be eligible the next year. So I think once we actually get them here and get our hands on being able to, impress on these young minds, I think we'll be able to do some things regardless of if sports kick off or not. With them being at home and having access to, different things, we may get a kid that loves their job too much to where they never want to come back to school. And I do feel like education is a priority. And for me, I think a degree is the price to get in the game. So I think it's very, very important for them to return regardless of if sports are, involved or not, because you and I both know one day the ball's going to stop bouncing. And what's going to be our backup plan. But us as their coaches who recruited them have to be the ones to tell them, like, hey, this is just as important as you scoring 5 touchdowns, as you scoring 30 points for us. You finishing your degree is the same level of importance regardless of if it kicks off this year or not.
No, and I want to draw attention to that. As a coach, you're more than just an X and O drawer. Mm-hmm. You're more than someone who yells at someone to run faster or get on defense. You're more than a strategic play-by-play caller. Mm-hmm. You are instilling social norms and socially acceptable activity that is expected of the best and brightest in our future. Because it's fair to say they'll have the education, but there's not too many people who can dunk a basketball or sink 30 shots in a row. That's a skill set that is acquired. That is a talent that is acquired. But to instill discipline, to get up, to understand the pain of regret by not doing what you're supposed to do. A lot of these things, as a young person, as an 18-year-old individual, you take for granted. And it takes people like you, Coach, to install that into our future. The young ladies, I know they definitely appreciate having you. But in this last few minutes of this interview, I would like to implore you to speak on a message. If you're talking to your administration, if you're talking to NCAA, your future players, your current players, what is the finite message you want to be sent out about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why times like this require, steadfast decision and decisive decision making that you've made out?
Well, for me, the recipe is going to be simple. It's going to be just be prepared to adapt and adjust. Regardless of whatever we want to think, there is a new normal. Will it ever go back to being the normal that it was before? Probably not. Is there an opportunity for there to be a better normal? Yes, there is. Okay, because now we have more information and we're able to make more conscious decisions based on new information that has came in. So for me, just being able to adapt and adjust to anything and everything that's going on. And, if you're always prepared, it'll never catch you off guard. So regardless of whatever that may be, you just got to be prepared and be ready. So you got to be comfortable being uncomfortable right now.
No, and from the sounds of it, I have no doubt that your girls will be ready to go out there and ball out when the opportunity presents itself, because clearly you have a plan. Clearly you're steadfast in your decisiveness, and you lead by example. You have no problem speaking your mind. And, you know, like I said in the beginning, if no one's told you, say I'm proud of you, and your work will pay off and it will continue to prosper. So I want to just say thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for joining us in the identity booth. I bet you'll never forget that name. And just being here with us to talk about this current situation, because like I said, I didn't understand what it was like for our teachers, our coaches, and people in the athletic world, what they're going through. So thank you for helping me understand that. You know, on the identity booth, our goal is to constantly try to identify with people as they identify with me. So I appreciate you identifying me, Coach Cox. Just round of applause for yourself. You know,
man, thank you, brother.
I greatly appreciate it. And to all my viewers out there, you guys know the routine right now. One of you guys definitely saw that I had, you know, a goal to get to 200 subscribers, and I had 173. One of y'all walked away. I don't know who you are, but I'm going to find you and bring you back here, because this is a great interview and I think you need to see this. But for all intents and purposes, thank you guys for joining us. I love your faces. Please put on a mask. It is it's literally the thing that can help us get back on the court. I like to be able to enjoy sports. I know who doesn't enjoy sports, so let's do all we can to make sure that the kids of the future are being given the best opportunity to succeed and, you know, continue to grow and prosper. And with all that being said, I'll see you guys later. Take care of yourselves. It's been a blast. And thanks again, Coach, for coming on.
Hey, no problem, Hero. Thank you.
All right. That's a done show. A tight 40 minutes, man. I tell you, I be on these questions. Cole, I had some people on here talking forever.
Yeah.
I told you 40 minutes. I got you 40 minutes. All right, so what I'm actually going to do is end the recording on your side.
On my phone?
Or on your phone. No, I have control.